Today I wanted to talk about what we have been reading in the month of March in our home. So the month of March has been a busy month of reading, I realized, as I'm gathering up all of the books that we have read this month. We finished The Bully Boys, which we were reading in February, and we began to read The Toothpaste Millionaire, which we got as part of the D&E core as a reader. But I read this aloud to the kids, and actually it was such a nice book. It's a book about a boy and a girl who decide to go into business making toothpaste because they think they can make it cheaper than what they can buy at the store. And it's what I enjoyed a lot about this book was there's a lot of basic economics types of concepts presented in this story. So this was a really neat story, kind of introducing finance, business, entrepreneurship, that kind of thing. And then we were loaned this book, and it is The Sword, the Ring, and the Parchment. And it is an allegory, a Christian allegory, and we are just kind of getting into it now. I don't know if we will continue it as a group though. Some of my kids are not, it's a little bit advanced for my 7-year-old, and even for me, the genre is not what I would choose, even though I have pushed through fantasy before, but I may encourage my older ones to continue reading this on their own if they'd like. My youngest, who is currently in 3rd grade, has been reading some hard books this year, and in the month of March he finished this Sherlock Holmes book that we did read aloud together last year. So he was already familiar with the story, so he read this one alone, and then after he read it he did a little like book review, book recommendation, all on his own, which was also, I was really pleased with that. So this is The 100-Year-Old Secret, the Sherlock Holmes files, and it's kind of like a modern twist on Sherlock Holmes, and he read it, he got through it himself, and so that was for the month of March. And then after he finished that, he's been kind of on a Nate the Great kick, so he's been reading all of the Nate the Greats that we have in the house, which is fine for me. He has been reading a lot of more advanced stuff, so I was happy to see him gravitate to something a little bit more easy. He also did Frog and Toad, which are classic 2nd, 3rd grade readers. And then for fun, he also picked out Captain and Matey Set Sail. So he's just been kind of reading for fun, more or less, and he was ready for some lighter reads. My 4th grader got through Naya Nuki this month as part of her language arts readers. So, and this was nice because it takes place in the northern US, Montana, North Dakota, and about an Indian girl. And because of where we're at with our Canadian studies, I felt like this really supplemented it well, and she was already quite familiar with the time period. So she got through that and is now working her way through Robert Fulton Boy Craftsman. For any of you who are familiar with Marguerite Henry, she has written King of the Wind, Justin Morgan Owns a Horse, and that whole, Misty of Chincoteague. So she also wrote this Robert Fulton Boy Craftsman, and basically highlighting the invention of the steamboat and how that kind of transportation really helped progress the Industrial Revolution and that kind of thing. So that's her reading. The other thing that my 4th and 5th graders are reading is they're doing one chapter of this, which they just started in the month of March, which is a really nice kind of guide through the Bible. I remember having this, the hardback version, when I was a kid. My mom also had a copy. So they're going through this slowly and then choosing one of the practical activities to do at the end of the chapter. So she is doing that along with her older brother, who is in grade 5. Speaking of my 5th grader son, he read a biography this month, and I cannot find it in any of our books, but anyways, it was the story of Thomas Alva Edison. He read that, and then he read Breaking Stalin's Nose as his language arts reader, and of course, by the title, you may have guessed, it takes place in communist Soviet Union. And just kind of how that was growing up as a boy with his father. They were kind of part of the resistance. So he got through that, not too difficult for him. And then he is into the Wright brothers, which is also really nice that he's reading this at this time, because now we are just through the Victorian era and entering the early 1900s. So he's reading this. At the beginning of March, my 7th grade daughter got through Seven Sons for seven daughters and 7 sons. And this was the second time she read this book. She liked it so much. This we got as part of the Sunlight F Corps, I believe. So that was her second time reading through. And it takes place in ancient Middle East. And now she is into King of the Wind by the author that I mentioned earlier, King of the Wind by Marguerite Henry. And she just finished this actually as well. So she's also reading biographies in this series this year. So the one that she's currently doing is Ida Scudder. This has also been a nice read for her because we have been highlighting some of the missionaries who are part of the foreign missions movement of the early 1900s and some of the later 1800s as well. So this was one of the ladies that they got to watch Torchlighters episode on, which are little animated videos about missionaries. And this whole year, actually, I forgot to mention this last video in February, but she has been going through Foods and Nutrition, 1 chapter a week, so very slowly, and just exposing herself to nutrition for our bodies and reading labels and food groups and all that kind of stuff. So we have read a lot this month. And I thought I would also share kind of what I have been working my way through this month too. Actually, the last few months, because I tend to read from a large variety of books all at the same time. The first one is Speaking the Truth in Love by David Powlison. I'm not sure how you say his last name. This book is just a nice book about communication. The back reads, True Comfort, Real Hope, Life-Changing Counsel, and just how our words influence the people around us. And so Speaking the Truth in Love is a guide for communication that changes our words and brings comfort and healing to those that we speak to. So this has been quite a challenging read for me, not content-wise so much, but just I feel like it's kind of heavy. The other book that I'm reading at the moment is Own Your Life by Sally Clarkson. I have a number of her books and they're all good. They're all great. This is my second or third time reading through this book because it's so inspiring. When I sit down and read this book, I feel like I just had a coffee with some of my really nice friends in Canada. So it's just really encouraging, really challenging, and very inspiring. So I would definitely recommend this. Living with Deep Intention, Bold Faith, and Generous Love. Some of the chapters in here are called things like Seeing Beauty and Purpose in Your Ordinary Days, Looking to God as Your Life Coach, Owning Your Life by Partnering with God, Attitudes and Actions that Transform, Learning to Take Risks by Owning Your Faith, Tending Your Heart and Investing in Your Soul, Owning Your Emotional Health. So this is like really a handbook for life and lots of scripture throughout, and Sally Clarkson is just a really gifted teacher. The other book that I've been picking my way through is 1000 Gifts, and this is also my second or third time reading through it because it's kind of like a devotional style, kind of meditative. I really like this book because it kind of highlights special things about what I normally look around and just take as normal. So I like this book for just changing perspectives. This book I started not too long ago, and it's called The Clockwork Universe. Is a book about the scientists in the Royal Society, Isaac Newton, the Royal Society, and the birth of the modern world. This is not a storybook. This is not, it's nonfiction. It has been so interesting to read about just kind of the mindsets of the early great thinkers and how they viewed science with their worldview and how it's kind of changed over the different historical eras, from the Greeks into the medieval days into even the modern world. So it highlights Isaac Newton. And the cool thing about reading this book is my husband saw it, and I kind of was telling him, I kept telling him parts of this book and reading little snippets, and then he picked it up, and so we have 2 bookmarks in here, one for him and one for me, which is really cool because we don't usually read the same books. He usually finds ways to learn all the stuff that he's interested in other ways. So that's been kind of neat. And then the fiction book that I'm reading right now is The Mozart Season by Virginia Ewers-Wolf. And this came from the Summer Readers Package last year. This book, The Mozart Season, it's a good story. I think I'm just going through it too slowly, so it's been difficult for me to get into, but basically it's about a girl, a young girl, I think she's 12, and she's a violinist, and she's gonna go into a competition, and so she's spending her summer preparing for this competition. She knows she will learn the notes to the concerto, but what she doesn't realize is what she'll also learn: how to close the gap between herself and Mozart to find the real music inside her heart. So it is a kind of like a self-discovery, also I think coming of age type of a fiction book. And I think I just need to really start going through this one more quickly, because I'm going through it so slowly that I'm kind of forgetting what happened in the previous chapters. And for those of you who read, you probably know that that kind of kills the love for reading a book. So I have to get on a good pace for this. That is it for the month of March. Thanks for watching.